Hello, everyone. Good morning, konbanwa, and welcome to the Open Innovation Week December edition. I am Marco Petuco, Head of Communications for 100 Open Startups, and you are watching the largest and most innovative open innovation event in Brazil. The Open Innovation Week is the monthly meeting point where people of the innovation ecosystem have the opportunity to co-create solutions, share knowledge, and of course, do business. This edition is being held in partnership with Jetro, the Japan External Trade Organization, and brings together the innovation communities of Brazil and Japan. So we are now going to watch a short video from Jetro. Check it out.
In Japan, major companies, VCs, and accelerators are actively working in collaboration with startups to create innovations to solve the various problems that have arisen with COVID-19.
Our firm, from a global perspective, is now looking at Japan as maybe a bigger potential than we previously thought when we first came here only a year ago. COVID-19 is not stopping Japanese companies from investing in working with foreign startups. COVID-19 is accelerating a trend for Japanese corporations to look more seriously and more quickly at implementing their own digital transformation. Big upcoming opportunity is the World Expo 2025, which Osaka was selected as the host city. The broad theme across the whole project is SDGs. It's time now to sort of really relook at Japan.
最近では教育のイノベーションをリードするようなスタートアップ企業の紹介の要望を多く聞くようになっております。日本のエテック市場の成長率というのはコロナ前直近で 13%、コロナの影響によって 30% ぐらいの成長率になるのかなというふうに予測されております。海外のスタートアップが先行事例を日本に持ち込み、関心のある日本の大手企業が連携することによってこの業界をさらに加速させてイノベーションしていくことができると思っております。日本には大きなビジネスチャンスが今あると思います。
Amid the search for a speedy response to the new challenges posed by COVID-19, there are high expectations in Japan for startup companies. The ecosystem that supports those startups and innovation in general will continue to grow.
I thank Jetro for the partnership. And now, to kick off today's presentations, which are about the innovation ecosystem of Brazil and Japan, I invite Mr. Hiroshi Hara, Chief Director General of Jetro. Welcome, Mr. Hiroshi. Thank you for your presence.
Thank you, Marco. I will share the PowerPoint now. Get started. Okay, good morning, everyone. I am Hiroshi Hara, Chief Director General of Jetro São Paulo. I'd like to express my sincere appreciation for the cooperation of numerous individuals in holding this event in the midst of COVID-19 and the year-end period before the holidays. World Week Japan is an event for Brazilian and Japanese companies to seek possibilities for technological collaboration. The objective is to make clear specific opportunities through lectures by Brazilian and Japanese specialists who are aware of the importance of collaboration with startups and changing business models. In addition, with the cooperation of 100 open startups, a pioneer in promoting open innovation online, we will also provide matching opportunities for the purpose of forming an efficient network and projects geared toward Japanese companies in line with their needs. From the aspect of innovation, Jetro has been conducting the following 3 activities. First is support for Brazilian companies with the aim of vitalizing Japanese economy when numerous business models have been changing. we have been providing programs for promoting investment into Japan by technological companies which were born from Brazil's unique social issues. We are helping 14 Brazilian technological companies, such as unicorns and health tech company, with rapidly growing remote medical technologies in the midst of the spread of COVID-19. Second is support for Japanese startups. Jetro established its sole innovation hub in Latin America this June. Primarily with experts familiar with the Brazilian market, we have been helping 14 Japanese startups with advanced technologies specialized in fields such as drones, small satellites, and information security. Third is support for Japanese companies in Brazil through the Japanese Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Brazil. Last May, the Innovation Study Group in the Japanese Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Brazil was established. With the KPMG, Deloitte, and the Brazil Venture Capital as joint organizer, we held a total of 6 meetings. Relevant parties from both countries were able to understand that flexible and imaginative solutions from Brazil are important in both improving existing business and discovering new business. Given that the acceleration of digitalization is currently closing the sense of distance between our two countries, opportunities to contribute to improving productivity and adding value expected in Society 5.0 and the Industry 4.0 in the post-corona world will be brought about for the Brazilian side. And for the Japanese side, we will be able to introduce the technology of Brazilian companies possessing new creativity to business models, which have been changing in line with the spread of COVID-19, as well as providing business opportunities to enter the gigantic market of Latin America. Not only Japanese companies in Brazil, but also those who are in Japan are watching today's event online. Providing an online point of contact between the two geographically distant countries will further deepen mutual understanding. I hope that the perspective of Japan-Brazil innovation collaboration will lead to the strengthening of bilateral economic relations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hiroshi-san. We are now going to take a short break and we'll be back in a moment. Stay with us. We're back with Open Innovation Week. Thanks to everyone who is watching us live. And you can write your questions to our panelists in the YouTube chat during the presentations so they can answer them at the end of the presentation. Now to present an overview of Japanese innovation ecosystem and Jetro Invest Japan, I invite Mrs. Tatiana Nagamine, Economic Analyst at Jetro. Welcome, Ms. Tatiana. Thank you for your presence. Tatiana.
Hello. Hi. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to our event. First of all, we would like to thank 100 Open Startups for partnering with us to promote this huge event. We are very excited to connect the Brazilian and Japanese ecosystems so we can grow business opportunities. And we would also like to thank all Jetro colleagues, our directors, our former directors for promoting this new project, and also the Brazilian ecosystem, our friends, the companies who will present this event. So first of all, I'm Tatiana Nagamine, economic analyst at Jetro, São Paulo. I work with Invest Japan program, Innovation Brazil Japan, and also economic research to support our executives and clients. I did Masters in Economics in Kyoto University and also Business Administration at University of São Paulo. So today, I will explain to you a little bit about our activities, Japanese innovation and startup ecosystem. And for those who are interested in doing business with Japan, it is important to understand how the economy is going right now and how can we support you to enter the Japanese market. So first, what is Jetro? Japan External Trade Organization. It's a government-related organization that promotes mutual trade and investment between Japan and the rest of the world. We have offices in 54 countries, and our activities are mainly based on 4 pillars: the promotion of foreign investment into Japan, the promotion of exports of Japanese agricultural and food products. We support Japanese small and medium-sized companies to internationalize and also support business through information. Now, during the COVID, we created new services. One is to support Japanese foreign companies in Japan. So if they want support about how it's information about incentives, what's going on in Japan because of the quarantine and virus, we help you through information. Our overseas offices are monitoring and offering official information about the situation in each country to support the Japanese companies and Japanese expatriates. And Invest Japan also has changed a little bit its focus, mainly to support companies in the health tech sector, mobility, ed tech, related to the COVID. And our main activities in Brazil are research. So we support companies throughout market reports, economic reports, free trade and economic partnerships, Mercosur, political environment. So the information that can impact or influence Japanese companies' business in Latin America. We offer services such as consultations, seminars, business matching. We also support promotion of business between our countries through events such as today, trade shows, meetings with government, industry association. Also, we have Invest Japan to support Brazilian companies interested in doing business with Japan. And a new one, it's Innovation Brazil Japan. When talking about innovation, it is a very broad topic. So today I'm going to focus on environment, startups, and open innovation activities in Japan, just for you to have an idea. Japan is the leader of one of the greatest leaders of innovation globally. It ranked top 20 in the world, and it's one of the 4 leading innovative countries for the next decades. It has the largest science and technological cluster, Tokyo, Yokohama, in numbers of patent applications and scientific publications. And why is that important? Because it can boost the creation of new products and new services. Japan is also the favorite place in Asia to establish R&D. One study from the Ministry of Economy said that in the manufacturing field, 50%, almost half of the foreign companies in Japan, they have R&D in the country. And how does that impact in Japanese economic ecosystem? The overview, Japan is known to have lagged in the development of entrepreneurship. It has both cultural and economic backgrounds. One is because the large corporations, they have a lure, they attract most of the employers, and they have also a low unemployment rate. So to start a business is more difficult. But now, in the recent years, we've seen a transition because in partly the government wants to boost the innovation ecosystem through startups creation. So they, for instance, they chose Tokyo as one of the national strategic economic zone. So they have different laws and regulations and how to finance the creation of new business. It's easier in Tokyo. Also culturally, the millennials, our generation, they are more open to different kind of industries and work styles. So they are more open to work for startups. Japan is still the innovation leader in Asia. And now with the digitalization trends boosted with the COVID-19, we have seen more attention focusing on these new ventures. And because Japan has large corporations in different sectors, such as automobiles and ships and spaceships, they have open innovation programs throughout the country. So these graphs, they show, compared to other countries, how Japan has lagged in the startup ecosystem. So the percentage of VC investments as a percentage of GDP is lower compared to the North America, Israel. The entrepreneurship index and new venture index is very low compared with those countries. But if we take a look what's going on in Japan, we've seen that the shift has been going on, happening since 2014. We've seen a boost in the number of loans for startups. So more people want to create new business. And we also see a trend of investments coming from venture capitalists and also the corporations. If we see the Japanese startup ecosystem, we can point out 4 main big cities. Tokyo, because it's the capital and it's the larger population in Japan, 9 million people, and they are headquarters of large corporations, and they are the heart of financial services in Japan. But also, we can see Kyoto and Osaka highlighted in Japan because they are part of the life science clusters. So their structure and the cultural aspects, they made it easier for the pharmaceutical companies and medical companies attract employers and researchers in those areas. So they are focusing on startups in those areas. In Fukuoka, it's a smaller city, but they are very known for the cluster of electronics and sensors. So they are focusing on IoT and smart cities. So Tokyo is the #1 startup ecosystem in Japan. It's ranked 15 in the world. And they have unicorns that went public in Tokyo Stock Exchange, such as Preferred Networks. They provide deep learning and high advanced technologies projects for big companies to innovate. Mercari is like eBay, a Japanese eBay. In line, it looks like a WhatsApp in Japan. The strengths of Tokyo ecosystem are manufacturing, high advanced manufacturing and robotics, and also fintech. The open innovation hub because they are headquartered of large corporations in different fields. For instance, we are partnered with NTT Data here in Brazil. They conduct a program called Open Innovation Contest that will be presented tomorrow by Professor Roberto. And they select startups in different countries and they dispute a final in Japan. And the finalist, the winner, can do business with NTT Data, not only in Japan, but their clients and abroad as well. And we met the startup MindFi, which was our client during this contest. And another interesting case is Toyota Finance. They invested in Origami, which is a startup that of cashless payment. In Japan, until recently, before COVID, 80% of people paid with cash. But now, because of social distancing and the quarantine, people are using more apps and internet to do payments. In Osaka is the second largest startup ecosystem in Japan. It's also the second largest cities, and it's focused on life science. Osaka is part of the Kansai area, which is known for large concentration of universities in the medical field, pharmaceutical companies, and medical equipment. And they also innovation hub, headquarter of large corporations. So if they're not in Tokyo, they are strong in Osaka. And I would like to highlight one program by the Osaka city government, which is called Osaka Innovation Hub, to foster this entrepreneurship mindset. So they are creating this environment with events to promote the meeting of university, venture capitalists, investors, and entrepreneurs to boost this ecosystem. And last year, they had Hack Osaka. They're focusing on foreign startups, and we had the first time the participation of a Brazilian startup. It's our client from Invest Japan, Predict Vision, and it was great to open the doors for the Brazilian startups. So the Japanese companies would see, oh, there are interesting solutions in Brazil. Fukuoka is another interesting case. It is the fastest growing city in Japan, very young population because of the costs is lower in the city and its proximity to South Korea and China. So people from those countries who want to open a business in Japan, they choose Fukuoka because of the history of the place and its strength in IoT and connectivity. So they are also focusing on smart cities because of the government, and the government created Fukuoka Startup City Program. So they help you to open since the ideation. You have consultations, and then Fukuoka Seed IPO. For more information, please check our event. So for the business interested in doing business with Japan, it is important to know what's going on with the economy. So it is the third largest economy in the world, 127 million inhabitants. They have very great free trade agreements, so it's easy to do business in Japan. It was doing great until the COVID. It has been impacted as many of other countries, but we've seen that the economy was getting better little by little. And there is a chance for digitalization opportunity to enhance investments for innovation in the digital world and innovation. And how can we support you? We can support you by Invest Japan. You can subscribe for free for our services, so we can help you with market reports, consultations, law and regulations. And one case is MindFi. That is the startup that we met with Everest NTT Data. And we are supporting them with the market reports, with business matching, not only in Japan, but also in Brazil. And we invited him to participate in CIATEC. It's the largest connectivity trade show in Japan, and they were awarded the prize as the best startup from foreigner country. So we are very happy to showcase a Brazilian startup to enter the Japanese market. He's focused on digitalization and automation of medical protocols using AI. So we hope you see more of our event. So throughout this week, and I'm open for Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Tatiana-san. We are now going to take another short break, and we'll be back in a moment. Stay with us. We're back with Open Innovation Week. Thanks to everyone who is watching us live. Remember, you can write your questions to our panelists in the YouTube chat during the presentation so they can answer them at the end of the presentation, okay? Now to present an overview of Brazilian innovation ecosystems and Jetro Global Acceleration Hub, I invite Mr. Mitsuru Nakayama, Director of Brazil Venture Capital. Welcome, Mr. Mitsuru. Thank you for your presence.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. So good morning to Brazil and some people in the US probably, and good evening to Japanese audience. Let me briefly start introducing myself. And well, I was born and grew up in Japan, and I worked at the consulting firm called Bain & Company. And also I founded my first company in Japan in around for 10 years. And I went to IE Business School in Spain, and I arrived at the Brazil in the beginning of 2012. So I also worked as a consultant at the Bain & Company São Paulo office. And I founded another company, which is Brazil Venture Capital in 2014. So now I'm in the market of ecosystem, I should say, for around like 6 years. So I mostly invest on Brazilian startups, but now I open to other Latin American countries as well. So if entrepreneurs watching this one, please let me know if you are interested in talking with me for potential investment. So we pretty much focus on a pre-seed round. So once you start generating a little revenue, then we can start talking. So very much focused on the pre-seed, ag tech, retail, fintech, not so much verticals, but in general, we would like to support entrepreneurs in a hands-off style of investment. So today, I'd like to talk about two topics. So one is about the Brazilian innovation ecosystem, Japanese investors' view, which is myself. And also another point is to introduce a little bit of Jetro Global Acceleration Hub and also some Japanese startups who are interested in the Brazilian market. So let me start with the overview of the Brazilian innovation ecosystem. So first of all, the reason I moved to Brazil is summarized in the two tables, which is on the left-hand side of the slide. So Brazil always has a strong economy, like a top 10 economy in the world always, but it's increasing the population by 2047. So eventually the population becomes larger and economic size is also going to be larger. And at some point, no one knows when exactly, but in the future, near future, I should say, Brazil would pass Japan in terms of economic volume. However, not many Japanese investors are looking at Brazilian market. Of course, some big Japanese companies already exist and looking for like a big deals, but especially like in the area of innovation or startup, probably I'm the only one person as a venture capitalist, I should say, from Japanese origin. I mean, experience with a professional experience in the Japanese market. Of course, you know, SoftBank is originally from Japan, but team is totally independently operated by local people. And some angel investors like a Tatsu, which presented previously, are interested in, but not so many. So this is why I am interested in this market. And luckily enough, in these 2 years, including this year will be the third year of a lot of growth in the venture capital market. So more than 2.5 billion US dollars were invested last year, and this year will be more. A lot of people are seeing this still like a strong movement from including the foreign investors from the US. So now I think this is the time the Brazilian startup ecosystem is taking off. And probably many of you know that this has been happening since 2018. A lot of some Brazilian startup made IPOs in the US market, which is very rare at the time and still probably is. And also the market cap is around like 8 billion US dollars, 6 billion US dollars. Then Brazilian ecosystem reached to another standard, higher standard. And also this kind of like a big exit invited a lot of foreign investors in latest series BCDs, paying the check with the $100 million and stuff like that. So a lot of unicorns are born in Brazil. And of course, SoftBank invested a lot in Latin American market, especially in Brazil. And top tier US venture capital firms are also entering and investing on Brazilian startup. So as a Japanese investor, I was wondering like why Japanese investors are here in the market, which is very growing and very attractive, right? So that's why I was waiting and started investing little by little. And finally, I'm very happy to have this opportunity with Jetro and Tatsu and some other companies are coming up in the rest of the week. So now Brazilian ecosystem is getting more attention from Japanese investors, I hope. And another big trend in Brazilian market is having domestic Brazilian market Bovespa's IPOs this year. 47 cases, but it was by the end of November, I think, or no, September. And some startup companies are also making IPOs in a very good valuation. So then venture capital firms are looking more and more into Brazilian market. So the future is bright for entrepreneurs there. And the reasons I think are three drivers, which drives like a growth of the Brazilian startups. So first is the enormous market. So, well, Brazil is the fifth largest in the population, but fourth largest internet users in the world, which 140 million users are in Brazil. And high smartphone penetration, pretty much equal to Japanese market. So a lot of people are using smartphone daily basis. And secondly, less competitive market, I should say, comparing with, let's say, Chinese or Indian market. If you find a business plan, there like a 30 or 50 startups are doing the same thing at the same time. So it's very highly competitive. However, in Brazil, not much international entries because of the language barrier, which Tatsu also mentioned. And the domestic market, well, has healthy competitive landscape, I should say. Not too many entrepreneurs are doing the same thing at the same time. So this is the opportunity to make the startup very big. And last but not least, flexible regulatory policy. Brazilian people hate kind of bureaucracy, and people know that a lot of regulations and laws are kind of prohibiting from growing. However, from Japanese perspective, it is very kind of healthy to set up a new regulation for new technology or service. I would say the example of Uber. In Japan, Uber is considered as a service of taxi. So it was regulated by taxis regulation, and which is almost impossible to operate in a way the Uber operate in Latin America or in the US. However, in Brazil, government started regulating Uber as a ride-share service, not as a taxi service, right? So this kind of like a new regulation is pretty much healthy in terms of to form an industry and to organize an industry. And also kind of like a flexible application in practice allows some new startups to test the market even like before start discussion of the new regulation, right? So I would say as a big market, not much competitiveness, or I should say not too much competitive market, and also opportunity for new service, which enables it shows Brazilian market very attractive for from my perspective. And as you can see, a lot of US origin global tech startups or tech companies, I should say, has a lot of exposure in Brazilian market. And for them, Brazilian market is the second largest or like a third largest market, which is very important for them. However, again, Japanese startups or many Japanese tech companies are not looking at Brazilian market, which is opportunity loss from my perspective. And I would say like a three potential areas for new business opportunity is already emerging and also will accelerate in the near future. So first thing is the empowerment or inclusion. So huge difference in service accessibility between rich and poor or large enterprises and small companies. So a lot of tech companies are trying to fulfill this gap and also reach to the larger market customer base. And the second point is digital consumer. I think because of the Uber and the several other services, consumers are accustomed to pay by smartphone. So also this year, social distance sensitivity raised, and which accelerated e-commerce, and also a lot of like digital services. And lastly, digital transformation and automation is another keyword. Flexible regulation enable to be test bed for new technology and services.
Excuse me, Mr. Mitsuru.
Sure.
Are you sharing your screen? Because we were not seeing, and I'm not sure if you're just talking or if you have screen sharing.
Ooh, really? Okay. I
No.
was sharing, but
Okay,
Okay.
now you see your screen. Thank
All
you.
right. Yeah. Okay. So if you wanna see my slides, probably you can ask 100 Open Startup to see my presentation later. So I will go ahead. So the first point, empowerment. Brazil has the largest difference between rich and poor, and top 1% rich people has 36 times of the rest of the country's population's asset. And this graph is kind of interesting, showing that Brazil has the average of the world in terms of the diversity of rich and poor. So if you see like a US, even the poorest people in US is richer than other countries' people. However, like in Brazil, the top like richest people are the richest in the world, and the poorest segment is poorest in the world. So that there is a big diversion in one country, meaning this is a very big social issue, and a lot of entrepreneurs are trying to solve this issue. And by solving this issue, the business grows very rapidly. And comparing with Japan, for example, like this is focusing on financial infrastructure. So the percentage of the bank account holders in Brazil is depending on the asset class, but 60 to 80% of the people has bank account. But in Japan, regardless of your social class, 98, 99% of people have a bank account. So the situation becomes worse when it comes to a credit card. So in Brazil, around like a 35, well, 16 to 35 people have credit cards, while Japanese population, 60 or 75% of Japanese population have a credit card. So one example, Conta Simples is a company that we invested this year, which went to a Y Combinator in the United States. So they issue corporate credit cards for small and medium enterprises. And in Brazil, as Brazilian audience knows, it is not so easy to get the corporate credit card if you ask for your banks. Then like for smaller enterprises, which is almost like impossible to have one. And once, if you have one, the cost is not so low for smaller companies. So Conta Simples solved this issue. And as the big amount of these smaller companies need these kind of like solution, so they grow a lot, like a 20, 30% a month. And another example, second point about the digital consumer, Brazilian consumers use use internet more than American consumers. This is dependent on internet use hours per day. In Brazil, like on average, 9 hours per day is the amount of the time we use internet. But in the US, which is 6 hours per day, so 30% less than Brazilian people spend on the internet. So Brazilian people love internet and stay online almost like always. So this is another opportunity. However, for example, online purchases, if you look at the left-hand side of the slide, a little more than 60% of the population has experienced online shopping. So which is not a little, however, which shows that there is more opportunity of more Brazilian to shop online in the future. And I think this year, a lot of things like this kind of services are growing a lot. And the last point of the automation or digital transformation, another example of agricultural drone service company called RPAC. which also the company, the Brazil Venture Capital invested. And hopefully we got another investment from Drone Fund, which is a Japanese venture capital firm focusing only on drone-related technology. So this RPAC does the spraying in the agricultural field, which enables smaller and medium producers get the opportunity to be more productive comparing with manual spraying operation. And those farmers do not have enough space to ask for spraying by plane. So this kind of intermediary operation enables those smaller producers to make productivity higher to catch up with the larger producers. So then now let's move on to the second part of the presentation to talk about the Jetro Global Acceleration Hub. And I think, this is a program to help Japanese startups to go abroad. And Jetro now has 28 cities in the world for Japanese startups to talk with local partners to give an idea of the local market situation, and also trying to match with the local potential partners like your distributors or like your R&D partner. And this year, finally, Jetro opened up Sao Paulo chapter, and Brazil Venture Capital is honorably taking this role to accept consultings from Japanese startups. And we'd like to show some Japanese startups in a coming couple of minutes. However, there are several, I think there are 7 startups that I will present. So I cannot deep dive into each startup. So please let me know or let Jetro knows about the detail of the startups, and that they're pretty much happy to share more information of each startup. So the first startup is Bluebee. They develop and produce drones. And it's in a very operational phase already, not only in the lab to start developing. So they are operating in the field in Japan. And there are several characteristics. So it's very simply designed, and which means easy to repair. So I'd say like a drone is like a personal computer in the 80s. A lot more like a crashes happens. So in drones operation, unfortunately, drone is not as stable as cars, as you can see. But so it is very important that the structure keeps simple to make the repair easier. And also it's very tough to control the drone. So you need to be a pilot, but it's not easy to drive like driving a car. But this Bluebee's drone enables to fly according with the terrain on the ground. And also easy flight control enables you to operate the drone much easier than normal ones. And also the cost is lower than some other countries' big drone manufacturers. So founder Hirotaka is looking at the Brazil market as a very interesting potential market. So hopefully he'd like to come to Brazil. So hopefully we can see him in Brazil sometime early next year. So the second startup is called AWWINK, AWW. So they produce Asian #1 virtual human. So virtual human is 3D computer graphics made kind of a celebrity. and they appears as like a model, or they can sing, they can dance, they can do a lot of things. However, which is much, well, in a virtual world especially, you don't have to care so much of the how the celebrity thinks, and well, she or he can be very busy, but he or she can, you know, work like a 24 hours per day. And this well, they have a very big good technology, and as you can see on the left hand side of the slide, they have raised $1 million as a seed round from Coral Capital. And Ima is one of the characters they produce, was ranked as the #1 virtual human in Asia. And I heard that uh, some Brazilian YouTuber mentioned about her, and they became popular in the cultural scene in Brazil as well. So, well, now they'd like to see more what they can do in a Brazilian market. So they like to talk to some advertising agencies and some big corporates to collaborate with to promote their products, services, and also at the same time, their virtual humans can play interesting roles in Brazilian entertainment scene. And the third one is called Axial Space. So what they do is they launch satellites in the space, and also they see take images, and also they analyze images to monitor the globe. Now, are you watching the video probably? Is it working well, Marco?
No, no, I'm not. On the bottom, yes, but no
Yeah,
sound.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no sound.
Okay.
Okay, good. And Axial Space has been talking with several Brazilian potential partners to partner with, and comparing with the existing imaging solution, their cost is extremely cheap, lower. So it's very accessible for startups which would like to use these satellite images to develop their own services. The fourth one is Metagen. Metabologenomics is the complete name, but we call them Metagen. So as you can see on the right bottom side of the slide, the team is like almost everybody has a PhD in various areas. So what they do is they monitor, or like they diagnosis, or they analyze your condition by, how can I say it in a kind of like a proper word in English, but your disposal, I should say. And comparing with the other, like for example, like a DNA analysis, DNA is like once you have it, you always own it. But your like a intestine condition, for example, like a gut environment, changes differently depending on your like a stress level, or like what you eat, how you are feeling well or not. So they provide services or like solutions to, for example, food companies, to prove that the ingredients that they put, or like the formula they develop their products, are very beneficial for human body, for example. Also, of course, they can provide healthcare services, like doing like a routine exams to see your condition is good or not. Of course, they can detect the cancer, or like some other, a lot of diseases, and they have gained a lot of hours as a very distinguished analytical level in this area. And the fourth startup is called Sagri. What they do is to analyze the terrain to see, and using their AI solution, you can identify what is happening in each segment that you can see here. Let's say if the growth of the plants are good or not, and they kind of like oversees the whole country using this like satellite images, also sensors, and also some data from drones, and they even like trying to prevent some criminal activities like growing illegal plants or like some illegal destroying the forest, for example. And they are providing service to Indian and Asian countries, even for like local government, collaborate with them to monitor their land security with them. So this is also another interesting example. And next startup is Addice. What they do well is to, I would say, like a friendly to use AI solution for people who are not so much specialized in this area. So that a lot of issue around the artificial intelligence solutions are, it's not so friendly for users to manipulate the system. So what Addice does better is you can like kind of show the correct answers, which AI solution shows you as an answer, and sometimes they are not correct, but you can correct them by feeding feeding the correct answers back to the solution. So meaning like the users can refine and tune up the AI solution to be more adequate to the solution that they want to use. So some example are showing here is their solution is used for production line in Asahi Kasei. And also they monitor the facility of the metro stations to automate the, for example, like air temperature control. And also they are doing some very important project in Japan, tying up with the university hospitals to create this like AI solution to be able to find infected or like a COVID-19 symptom. And well, let's move on to the agri startups. I think two more startups are coming. So yeah, one is Nihon Agri. They export Japanese quality agricultural products. Currently, they are focusing on Asian countries. They have like a footprint in well, 7 countries outside Japan. So they started exporting Japanese quality fruits. I know a lot of like Brazilian are watching this one and thinking that Brazil is rich in fruits. But I have a lot of Brazilian friends here in Japan, and that they eat Japanese fruits, and that they see a lot of difference in terms of taste and quality. Of course, not all fruits, but some fruits are very specially treated and produced in Japan. So they started exporting fruits, and that now they are starting like producing locally using a Japanese technology. And this founder, Shohei, has studied in Brazil a year and so they know Brazil, and they'd like to come to Brazil as well. And last but not least, Agri Info Design is another agtech company. They help farmers to use a tractor to navigate much easier and better. So the problem is, well, it's not so easy to run straight by tractor where, for example, the land is inclined and you don't know where you run, but you need to spray your chemical materials evenly. So you need to cover like almost like a paint the whole area that you're working. So as you were seeing on the bottom right side of the presentation, it's like a Waze or like a Google map for tractor. So you can visually confirm where you run and where you are going to run. And also bigger farmers, which has several tractors, also can control and monitor where your company or your workers have done their job. So basically, this is it. I think I kept 5 more minutes for Q&A. And well, again, like for entrepreneurs, if you are interested in talking with me as an investor, please give me send me an email or like a contact with me by LinkedIn. And again, if you are interested in some of the Japanese startups that I presented, also again, you can you can contact with me, but you can ask Jetro. And I see some questions are here, like how you can share the presentation. I believe you can ask 100 open startups to share the presentation.
Mitsuru.
Oh no, yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah. May I ask you to go through the first slides again quickly so that the audience can pause the video on YouTube and see them later, please?
Got it.
Just quickly.
Okay, yeah.
No need to present them again, but just so people can pause.
Okay. I was talking about like myself, my profile. Then I talked about the Brazilian startup ecosystem, and the first slide is comparing how Brazilian economy will be larger than Japanese economy. And many of you may know that Brazilian startup venture capital investment has grown and is growing. And a lot of big exits have been happening since 2018. And well, SoftBank Vision Fund started investing on Brazilian market, also other US venture capital firms. And a big highlight of this year is a lot of IPOs are happening in the Brazilian domestic market, Bovespa, including some startup type of companies. And the attractiveness of the Brazilian markets are 3 factors. And global tech companies are doing a lot of business, and Brazil is the 2nd or 3rd largest important market. And these are the 3 potential areas that I'm looking at a lot. So then after that, I managed to start sharing the screen, and okay, so.
Nice, perfect, thank you. I don't think there are questions. Let me check on YouTube.
Yeah, some people are like asking for the presentation, how they can receive them.
Yeah, the video will stay on YouTube, so people can watch your presentation again and then pause on each slide.
Right. Okay. Sorry, I think I kind of like messed up with the order of the presentation because of the sharing, but I am passing in the order again, so you can review it afterwards.
Thank you. No problem. Is there anything you want to add up to your presentation? Because we still have some time, but I think we have no questions from the public.
Okay. Yeah, basically this is it. And well, I'll be back in Brazil in February, and hope to see you guys there. And I would like to talk with a lot of entrepreneurs. I'm based in São Paulo, so I kind of like work locally there. So hope to see you guys.
Okay. There's a question from Andre Saito. What difference do you see between startup ecosystems from Brazil and Japan?
I think the Brazilian ecosystem in the middle of like a development. So what I saw was like, I was an entrepreneur in Japan back in 2000 to 2010. And I pretty much like look at Japanese ecosystem back that time was similar to the Brazilian ecosystem now. So hopefully a lot of venture financing is becoming more and more easier, especially for the earlier stages. And another thing is that there should be more serial entrepreneurs should come to Brazil, and they can share their experience with the younger entrepreneurs. Then the ecosystem will be much richer.
Okay. There's another question. I send you through the chat if you want to read it.
Okay. Yeah. What are the main barriers you see for Brazilian investors to invest in Japanese startup? I don't see much barriers, but I mean, as same as like a whatever type of business, you need to understand the local market. So the question is how you start accessing the market to learn the market competitive dynamics, for example. So of course you can ask me, but like Tatsu can help you a lot because he knows a lot of the Japanese startup ecosystem. So I don't see much barrier, and also you can count on Jetro. They can guide you well how you can start contacting with the Japanese market.
Okay, thank you. I think this is it.
Yep. All right.
Okay, so thank you very much for your presence. We're taking now one last break, and we'll come back in a moment. So stay with us. We're back with Open Innovation Week. Thanks to everyone who is watching us live. Remember, you can write your questions to our panelists in the YouTube chat during the presentation so they can answer them at the end of the presentation, okay? Now, to present a panorama of open innovation and startups in Brazil, I invite Bruno Rondani, CEO of 100 Open Startups. Thank you very much, Bruno.
Thank you, Marco. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for Jetro for this partnership and all the content for us to learn more about Japan. From my side, I'll make a brief overview about how open innovation and startups are evolving in the country. And then hopefully we'll find better ways to collaborate between Brazil and Japan. So I'm just sharing my screen. Is that on? Okay. So I like always to start by saying that we are going through a very important transformation on the innovation ecosystem in general. Large companies would work in a very different way towards the ecosystem maybe 20 years ago. And the same goes for startups, the way they see large corporations. So traditionally, large corporations will focus on their internal R&D activities. they still do, but they do it in a very open way now. And the venture capital, they would maybe even profit from the existence of this corporate R&D activities and exploit financially exploit teams in a way that they could compete with those high budgets on R&D by making more nimble startups, but still with the same potential of becoming very big companies. But then something has changed, and mainly the access to capital, to technology, to platforms that made an environment that you have a much larger number of startups in the ecosystem, and then you cannot think innovation without partnering with the ecosystem. And the ecosystem became maybe the main resource for you to be innovative, for you to be capable of competing in a innovation scene. So large companies, they started to more and more, they started to focus on strategies where they could become platform for the ecosystem, and the digital transformation, if you see, it's happening all the sectors. So the digitalization of business means also a lot of opportunities for those large companies to work with startups and a more specific innovation that you can add up and build a system. And then venture capital house also evolved in a way that you have funding in early stage for much a larger number of startups. So now you have a bigger population of entrepreneurs working on those different sectors, different technologies that can support and work together with the large companies. And if you see what's happening in the last few years, the number of successful startups that become the so-called unicorn has increased a lot in the last maybe 5, maybe 10 years ago. And now what's happening is that almost all established companies are developing their own ecosystem, trying to manage their relation with the ecosystem and mainly with startups. So you can see not only tech-based or this big technology platforms working on the ecosystem with startup, but you can see more traditional firms also partnering with startups in a massive way, with more and more startups linked to their business. So it became for us very important then to analyze what was happening and help and support how could a company now that you compete, if you go to the market, you compete with other companies to the attention and to attract startups. Also, how can you decide the best one? How to team up with them? How to select the best one? So we see the opportunities and the markets as a way to attract this army of entrepreneurs, of startups that will work together in solving big issue, big problems with those that own the resources for that. And then the large firms are mainly those platforms that could support a big number of startups in working together and solving big problems. So first, I would like to share the results, and then a little bit of how it evolved in Brazil. I'll talk a little bit about maybe Latin America, but how it evolved in a region that is not as well known as a leading innovation country. But somehow open innovation with startups in Brazil is doing very well and is producing a lot of attention and results and very interesting innovation cases from in different sectors. So a quick panorama from the last 5 years. If you see first venture capital, now we are a very attractive region. So maybe we have now hundreds of international venture capital investors operating in the region. We grew maybe 10 years ago from less than $100 million VC investment in the region to maybe 2020, we will be probably above $5 billion. And Brazil takes about half, a little bit more than half of it. So it's a very important growth, meaning that now we have a strong VC industry in the region and in Brazil. And it started to produce also in a constant way this unicorns that the world is also producing, but now the region, Brazil became last year country number 5 in producing, together with Germany, behind the US and China. The country that would produce more unicorns in the year. So we count now with maybe 10 to 15, depending on how you consider the unicorn. But the region has about 25, maybe 30 unicorns by now. And now if we go to the other side and we see what's happening with large companies, we've built this program, I'll explain a little bit more, called 100 Open Innovation, 100 Open Startups, to foster open innovation with startups. And we set up there a platform for companies to use to connect with startups. And this is some interesting numbers. In 2016, we had 27 companies with 40 challenges being published to the startup community. And if we consider all that happened in the 5 years, the very big growth number of companies that will launch challenges, and I'm talking not all the companies in the country will launch together with 100 Open Startups, so you still have more than that, and I will show you a general overview. But only by seeing our platform, you can see a very important growth. And we had in 2020 877 challenges from 167 companies. If we take more general numbers, the community, the open innovation community that was formed in Brazil and is linked via the 100 Open Startup platform, we have about 7,000 people engaged. We have almost 3,000 enterprises, corporations, and then if we count the number of large companies that have at least one open innovation deal with the startup, we have almost 2,000 enterprises. And then if we take the startup side here of let's say the 15 or 16 or 17,000 startups that might exist in the country, we have 13.6 thousand startups that join the program to connect with large corporations, and more than 2,000 of them have signed at least one agreement with one corporation, and this agreement to be considered an open innovation agreement. So if go back to this image of where are the opportunities that we will attract and the platform that will attract the startups, we can now, by doing that, see how it is distributed, the open innovation agreements, where you have at least one company and one startup to have this open innovation agreement. And it's very well distributed in the different sectors. And you have maybe more transversal sectors like or areas like productivity or marketing or human resource. You have from 9 to 8%. And then if you go to agriculture, healthcare, very important sectors, they're present with about 2% of the total number of agreements. So it's very well distributed by field, by areas, and by industry sectors. So basically, by doing that, you can see the performance of the startups and how they evolve when they are evaluated by the different levels that we supported the startups, ecosystem, investors, corporations, and then open innovation programs, and then the ones that are with agreements, with formal agreements. And then you can see how the startups are evaluated and how they grow and how they raise more funds, get more clients, and then you can converge the attention for the startups that will most probably succeed in the short term. And we started to see phenomenon where the unicorns, or the big companies, but mainly the unicorns, they also grow by partnering with startups. So we have a number of deals made by even a startup from the program called Banco Neon. So they were ranked with a revenue of less than $2.5 million in 2016. And then they bought another startup from the program called May Fácil after having received a very big investment check from Banco Votorantim, and I believe was General Atlantic as well as the VC investor. And then the same happened with Vitex and iFood, Zenvia, ClearSale, Loft. Vitex, for instance, is a SoftBank invested company. They also came to the ranking and bought early stage startups. So this led us to some important insights about what's going on. So we can see that companies are increasingly relying on startups to innovate. The intensity of this relationship, open innovation with startups, has increased maybe 20 to 30 times in the last 5 years, depending on the metric that you take. If you see number of startups with more with deals, how it increased, number of companies. I'm sorry for the Portuguese here in this figures I will show, but here's the number of startups, number of companies, the number of relation or formal contracts or agreements, and the intensity measured by our ranking system. Then we also have this very important insight where we know by now that in the innovation ecosystem, if you take the different type of participants today, executives from large corporations are the main group. So we have more executives interacting in the innovation ecosystem than entrepreneurs themselves. So they surpass the number of entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs, they were already connected because of all this, the venture capital activity and all the programs to foster entrepreneurship, but they were not connected to the large corporations maybe 5 to 10 years ago. And now, if you join innovation ecosystem, you see the presence of this group as the largest group in the innovation ecosystem by now. A very important insight as well is that now in Brazil, companies that look for partnering with startups, they usually find. So at the beginning, we'll have the first 3 years, 2016, 17, and 18, maybe 24, 25% of the companies that will look for a startup will find at least one to cooperate with. And now if a company joins the open innovation ecosystem, they will find in at least more than 50% of the time. So now it's almost reaching 60%. And that means the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem is mature, and they have very good startups to connect with. So and this also leads to another insight that we get from analyzing the numbers, is that last year, or I mean this year, 2020, the number of large corporations surpassed the number of startups with open innovation deals. At the beginning, large companies will come and they will select startups, and we were impressed by how near the number of startups and large companies were. So every time we had a deal, one startup with one company, then we add to our statistics. In the first year, we had like 108 startups and 82 companies, and then 154 startups and a very similar number of companies. But last year there was a change, and the number of companies became much higher than the number of startups, and that is probably explained by the coordination of the ecosystem. Now, if a company comes at the beginning, they were let's say less in number. Now all the medium-sized company, all the value chain are coming to the startup ecosystem to look for partners, and then they already find the ecosystem very well organized, and it's converging to a fewer number of startups, this first agreement, this first contracts. So that's what's happening, and we believe this will increase a lot. The number of startups will increase, will continue to increase, the number of agreements, and the intensity in the large companies. Because if we see our fifth insight here, open innovation with startups is already a multi-sectorial phenomenon. It's happening in all different fields. I'm sorry again for the graph was made in Portuguese, but we see there financial services, energy, professional services, IT, retail, and let's say food.
I think we lost the connection with Bruno. We're going to take a short break, and when Bruno returns, we will return as well. Thank you. Bruno is back, so Bruno, you may continue.
Okay, sorry. So my last insight here is about the long tail that we can see. So open innovation with startup is less and less concentrated on the giants, on the large companies. Now we see, as I mentioned, a big number, very huge, and represents percent.
Bruno, your audio is breaking a little bit. I think your connection is weak. Bruno? Yeah, we're having problems with Bruno's connection. Yeah, let's take another. Bruno, are you there?
Yes, sorry. That's
Okay.
that was my last slide anyway, so maybe I don't know if you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're breaking for us. Okay. No?
I'm here. Marco, that was my last slide. Did it make too much or?
Yeah, no. We're not hearing your voice. Okay. Well, that's it then for this first day of presentations at the Open Innovation Week, December edition. Throughout the event, you can access our speed dating matchmaking platform, where you can connect with other participants of Open Innovation Week in online meetings of 18 minutes each. Bruno will be there as well, so you can ask him for a meeting. And to participate, just check in at the event using the 100 Open Startups app at 100os.app or by downloading the app from the App Store or Google Play. You can watch the open content of the Open Innovation Week until this Friday. We'll be back tomorrow streaming live at 9 a.m. Brazilian time with the Open Talks about health tech. On behalf of 100 Open Startups and Jetro, I thank you for being here with us. Arigatou gozaimashita, and I wish you an excellent event. See you tomorrow.